Everyone wants to beat Rolex, and no one ever does. Why? Why is the situation not meaningfully evolved in 70 years? And how? How does Rolex turn out over 1 million watches every year to a -2+2 superlative chronometer standard, which is absolutely unmatched? Well, the simple reason that Rolex is untouchable, they said build when everyone else said buy. Let me explain. In systems design, and indeed in software, at a certain scale, it makes sense to outsource part of your manufacturing flow, right? In the case of watches, that's often the movement, sometimes it's the finishing, sometimes it's components in the movement. Other companies, even companies like Tudor and Omega, will outsource to ETA or Sellita, and they'll put their own touch on those movements, right? They'll outsource materials manufacturing. If they've got gold in the watch, someone else is producing that gold. Someone else might even be brushing or finishing it. Rolex has its own gold foundry. Every piece in every Rolex watch, and all of the tools indeed that touch those pieces, were created by Rolex itself. So if there's a screw in a Rolex watch, it's a Rolex screw. The screwdriver that is driving that screw was made by Rolex as well, right? So let's dig into that Rolex superlative chronometer spec, -2+2. Why is that meaningful? Why would you rather have -2+2 seconds per day versus -0+5, like an Omega coaxial watch, right? It's not just a spec, it's a philosophy. And simply put, if your watch could lose 2 seconds or gain 2 seconds a day, in the aggregate, that is 0 seconds, right? So you have less variation over time. Instead of being 2.5 minutes fast every month, like a Seamaster, you might not be fast or slow at all. This is just simply not achieved by other brands. And it's thanks to this vertical integration that Rolex is able to do things so consistently. They have ultimate control over every piece of the manufacture, right? They innovate quietly and they innovate permanently, right? So they're not reaching for the stars with everything they do. Sure, the chronology escapement is brilliant, right? It's an improvement on the Swiss lever. It's 15% more efficient. It's anti-magnetic. It's low friction. The Parachrome hairspring that they have in their watches is anti-magnetic, not as much as the Omega Mitas silicone hairspring, but enough, right? These watches are really solid. They're not going for top end. Indeed, they don't go for top tier with their pricing. They eliminate failure from their vocabulary, right? They don't have to reach the stars. They just have to make failure impossible. And that's why watches like this Submariner Date are virtually indestructible. I don't have to baby this watch. I don't have to think about it. It can accompany me on my adventures, right? It becomes a part of those adventures. And it's by embracing this build over buy that Rolex is able to produce that kind of robustness, right? And that kind of brand consistency and that kind of production at scale. Now, it's very difficult for a competitor that has been outsourcing even part of the movement or even part of the watch manufacturing process to vertically integrate from scratch. It takes decades of refinement, built up trust, financial commitment. It's very difficult to replicate. And that's why micro brands, I love micro brands, but they would rather outsource with an ETA or Sellita movement, add a complication maybe on top of it, even if it makes the watch case thicker, and call it a day. And that's a reasonable thing to do, right? But if you want to replicate the precision and accuracy of a Rolex watch, you need to spend these decades building up that level of vertical integration. So I hope that helps explain this phenomenon and explain why Rolex is the GOAT. If you don't agree, let me know in the comments. Thanks.